Messi. Messi. Oh my goodness. Balotelli. Aguero. That is extraordinary. What a head, son. What a head.
Back of the net.
Hello, and welcome to Not a Clown. I am Killian Ginnity, and I am delighted to be joined, as ever, by Conor Glennon and Nathan Byrne. Gentlemen, we have so much to get through this evening. How are we doing?
Well, it's not something I get to say very often, but gents, we are in Cup final week. Yes, we will probably get absolutely obliterated, but I will take the week that's in it, and we definitely have a lot to talk about this week, and nothing more so than Man United. And how is our Man United friend Nate? How you going?
I'm doing well. I can't wait to get to New Trafford and see how it's going. Already looking at which apartment I might get, you know what I mean?
Conor, before we get on to United, how are you feeling coming into the Cup final? What did you make of last weekend's performance? Does it give you much hope?
Yeah, look, I mean, it was a great result. I think it's hard to compare that team against the team that we're going to face. An out of form Liverpool is still better than an in form Newcastle, so I think we're really going to have to be lucky on the day. We obviously aren't firing on all cylinders from a resource perspective, so we got trouble there. But I think the beauty of football is anyone can beat anyone in a cup final. So I'm going to live in the land of hope, and I'll probably get called a clown for thinking we even have a chance. But sure, that's already happened. So what's so bad about being called a clown twice?
Yous are level now with City in the Premier League. Obviously, Forest got a win.
Big win.
Big win. I think Forest had nailed on for a Champions League, but who do you think is going to get the Champions League spot between yourselves, City and Chelsea? And in fairness, Brighton and Villa, Bournemouth are all still in the mix, but
I am in two minds about us even being in contention for that. Like I said, previously, I personally, as much as I love seeing us in the Champions League and the financial benefits of it, I don't think it's the best thing for us based on the squad depth that we have. And I do think there'll be a little bit of, if we do lose to Liverpool in the cup final, there might be a drop off mentally that will take us out of that top four. Then again, if we win it, do we run with it? I don't think it's going to be us. I think City, Forest, Arsenal, Liverpool, to be honest.
Nate, what do you think?
Oh, it's a tough one, isn't it? It's mad that Forest could be back in the Champions League.
You love to see it, though, don't you?
For their back-to-back Champions League wins. Like, it's just written in the stars. It's 79 and 80, and it'll be 2026 and 2027.
Who do I think would get top four? I think it will be Liverpool, Forest if they can hold on. I hope they don't slip up now because it'll be a great story. Arsenal, City.
Do you think City are going to recover enough to get to fourth?
I think they. I don't know about you, but I think they've been there enough times in terms of crunch moments of finals and stuff. I think they'll piece this together. It may not be pretty, but I think they'll piece it together. What are you saying, Killian?
I think it's the way the top three are is the way they're going to be. I just think that there's so much kind of competitiveness between fourth down that they might kind of either self-implode to some of the teams, i.e. City, or they'll cannibalize each other and kind of keep each other from being out of reach. So I think it's realistically Chelsea's to lose the fourth position, but Newcastle could do it. I wouldn't be confident enough to say that you would. But still puts you in Europe in the Europa League and stuff.
Oh yeah, and that I'd take. Like I'm not trying to say it's a poor competition. It's an incredibly difficult competition, but I do think it's less strenuous on a squad.
Nate, you mentioned New Trafford, and this has been the big news today. But before we get to the stadium itself, there was some context to be provided. We were kind of wondering last week why Neville was so willing to kind of excuse Radcliffe's spending, as we pointed out. If Glazers had been doing the same, it would have been World War III. obviously we found out he was having the big interview with him.
Yeah, it was an interesting interview. It was exactly how I thought Radcliffe would play it. I think we've all come to see that he doesn't really care about his public perception, to say that. But like I think a lot of it was smoke and mirrors in terms of he was given the easy answers. There was some interesting stuff in terms of like the stadium, obviously, and even touching on players, how some of them are overpriced. Do I think he like had the perfect excuses for the reasons why he pulled back on paying staff and the meals and stuff? I'm not too sure, but listen, it's his decision. He said what he said, and I don't see him backing down on that.
I don't know about you boys, but like I went into it. I was surprised it happened, to be honest. And then a large part of me was fair play to him for doing it. I mean, he's taken pelters in recent weeks, and as Neville touches on in the interview, is that a problem in itself that he's the face of this when the Glazers are the legacy issue with this? But I one thing I didn't like about it was there was no real personal ownership on much. I think he took the knee on things he really had to, but there was a lot of there was more than me in this, and that may well be true. But I think for an optics point of view, he should have really taken ownership of a lot more. Even just I suppose to pad the rest of the ELT, you know.
I found like he didn't accept any responsibility really. Everything was I wasn't like down to season ticket price changes. I wasn't told. I was only informed after. Be it players. Oh, that was before we came in. The only thing he kind of actually took a bit of ownership on was Ten Hag. That was wrong to keep him for as long as he did. But even then, it wasn't his decision.
Same
Like,
with Ashworth. It was very similar in that one. You know, he was like, oh, it was a chemistry thing. And then he tried to be somewhat honorable and be like, look, I won't go into that. But then he threw enough daggers that it's like, okay, we get it. He didn't get on. But like, even from look, he can make wrong mistakes. But I think his understanding of the cash that went into that was poor. And, Eric Ten Hag is probably, you're right, the only one that he said was an error, and kind of threw jabs at some of the transfers in, especially the Dutch players were on him. But I don't know, weird interview.
Nate. Now Sunderland had an owner who was very willing to chat with media and do sit downs and do podcasts in Stuart Donald. The last owner before our current owner, so the ones in Sunderland Till I Die season 2, I think it was the ones where it was like techno EDM music continues in the subtitles. That ownership, they were very very willing to chat to the media for good and bad. From the general fan perspective, what did you think going into this interview, and what do you think this is going to be like a new way of Radcliffe going forward, that he's going to do these every couple of months and be a little bit more frank and honest about kind of the decision making processes?
Personally, for me, and it might be a little bit different to like say the type of United fans that don't consume say United stuff like I do quite intensely, is um he was just saying a lot of stuff that I already knew. Do you know what I mean? Some of the spin and some of the stuff he said, like in regards to finances and things like that, some fans I think will fall for it. Do I think they should? No, I think a lot of it was smoke and mirrors and try and get some heat off and this and that. Um, so yeah, like it was. I found it quite hard to take it at face value, and what to take from it personally. I didn't really take much. I don't know about you guys on the outside looking in, but to me, it just looked like a lot of stuff that I already knew.
Like I'll give some small bit of credit to Gary Neville. I thought he kind of put some relatively hard questions. I was expecting this to be a complete and utter Thank you, Mr. Radcliffe. Oh
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
Mr. It wasn't quite that. He did kind of ask some awkward questions. I wouldn't say hard questions, and he kind
And he
of
was and he was happy to sit in the silence. I will say that.
yeah, he kind of he didn't kind of chase them up, other than the 40 grand for the former players and the meals. They were the only ones that he really chased. And Nate, like you were saying about the kind of deflections and stuff. Oh, talking about 40 grand for former players from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Well, why didn't the players do, like, either give the money or to do fundraisers for the money? Oh, well, nobody thought of that. But by the way, if we didn't do this, the club would have been bankrupt by the end of the year. It's like, it's a poor excuse. And do you really think the club is going to go under by the end of the year, Nate?
No, not a chance. Just in case the listeners at home didn't realise, we just literally announced the £2 billion stadium that we're looking to build. So, it'd be crazy if we were broke yesterday and, have 2 billion in the bank today. No, we weren't going to go under. He was referring to accounts that have to be registered in terms of the stock exchange in America, and stuff you can track. Technically, on paper, we would have, but it's on the owners to put cash into the club, and that's something that we haven't really seen in 25 years of Glazer ownership. Um, do I think he should be waving the "I'm a hero" type flag, going around doing this and that? No, he bought the club. Invest your money into it. Um, but in
What money?
turn,
He says he has none left.
he's got plenty of money. Trust me. I think another aspect is, because he's looking to work with the government in terms of the new stadium, is he's got to sort of play a tight line in terms of what he's willing to share and not share. What he's willing to let the government know and not know to help with his bargaining and whatever. So I think we were only going to get that type of interview.
In interviews like these, there's always a reason for it. There's always an audience you're doing it for. Do you think this was an interview for the fans, or do you think this is an interview for the shareholders?
I think this is an interview for the fans so they didn't freak out when he announced the stadium today later. That's what I personally think.
I think there's also a bit of the other side of it too, though. I see where you're going with that. Is it a soundbites for trade press kind of PR spin? And I think there is an element of that. I think if that was the exercise, this interview, he probably failed. I think from a fan perspective, I think he would have come out a bit better amongst the fans that can't see through the smoke and mirrors, as Nate put it. And I think the biggest thing, like, I don't want to kind of stay too long on this 40 grand point, but the bit that really Nate's voice spoke in my head when he said we'd never thought of doing a club event or asking the players. It's like, oh, you truly don't care. Like, there was a ruthlessness to that comment of a God. Why would I even think of that? It's like you've got some of the biggest minds and biggest football brains from a commercial perspective in that building. Not too long ago, we were calling them the Avengers, the financial Avengers. And if they're that tight on ideas, pardon the pun, like, they're in bigger trouble. It just shows a lack of care, because, like, even the way the Fergie salary. I can't remember if it was in the Neville interview or a subsequent interview where he said that he spoke to Sir Alex about kind of rescinding his £2 million contract, and Sir Alex came back 3 days later and said, "Okay, I'll step down, but it's on my terms." It's like he needs to. I understand there's optics of we need to put the scale back, and I think, Nate, you're right in the fact that he does need to play poor to the government so that they fulfill their end of the bargain, but you just got to weigh up the PR aspects of this, like the likes of the 40 grand and Sir Alex's fee or salary. They're not ones that should be top of the list. They should be
But
the last ones to go.
the thing is, you said there about the financial elites coming in, and they're meant to be the A squad or whatever. I think that's what we're seeing. Is these people do not give a fuck. Like, they are willing to go in, ruffle feathers. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't say it as it hurts them. Like, I genuinely don't think they care, and I think they're actually trying to get to the bottom of what they're trying to do. And I don't think people or anything's going to stand in that way in terms of, I don't want to upset this person, that person. We've seen it. Like, they truly don't care. And I think they said in one of the interviews yesterday is like the way he summed it up was United had a when they were doing research into like all the staff is they had a body language expert that was on 175 grand a year.
Well,
Like,
yeah. When
do
you
you
see
know what I mean?
bloat like that, and I know we've touched on before that there is like we don't know the exact roles that the 600 people that got made redundant had, and I'm sure there's water tasters and all sort of dubious positions, shall we say? And I do you think though, like as a fan, do you believe they can pull this off? Because if all this trimming down is done and they can't fix it, it it's like there's nothing left,
The
for
thing
them.
is, I think they will do it. I think the reason they will do it is because they don't care, and I think their issue now is they're walking around a minefield without blowing up a bomb. Do you know what I mean? I think
Yeah,
that's what they're trying to do. Is they're trying to not. They don't care if they ruffle a few feathers and a few PR disasters here and there. I think they're just not trying to send everything into meltdown. And like the way I see it is, if Sir Jim is, you know, a United fan as he says he is, and he's at that level where he's willing to do these things and not care, is the matter. The fact is, the other business people at the club who probably don't support United, they truly don't care. So that's how I see it. Is it's going to be ruthless. Us fans won't like it, but listen, at the end of the day, if that's what it's going to take to get us back at the top, like who am I to say no? You know what I mean?
what I was also curious is just the timing around it is like I know of the redundancy. I don't know if these were included in the redundancies or just happened outside of it, but you're seeing heads of function like the head of social media just left, the head of HR just left. Do you think it's a case of staff or there's always going to be churn in these heads of functions? They're highly desirable people, but do you think it's a case of the redundancies? Do you think it's a case of they want to get out of the getting a club that's getting pelters, or what is it?
The way I read into it, and listen, I'm only speculating here, is it felt a bit like jump before you're pushed type thing.
Okay.
They brought a new head of marketing in from PSG. Um, as you said, head of HR just left, head of social just left. So like if they're leaving at the same time, it feels a bit more like we're pushing you out and getting new people in. That's how I bought into it.
I kind of got the same vibe off, but it's interesting you did too. What are you saying, Killian?
I think he's made a rod for his own back with kind of the general financial comments by basically saying that in 5 years' time they're going to be challenging for titles and be debt free. Considering you're losing 300 million a year, or have lost 300 million in the last
Four.
couple of years.
Yeah.
Like that is a ridiculous turnaround to achieve without really breaking the leg. Should I say? Because like you're not going to find somebody to get Casemiro off your wage bill. You're not going to find somebody to take Sancho's full wages off your wage bill. Like these are long-term issues that you are going to be paying for over that time.
Radcliffe said if you don't sign a single player this summer, you owe 90 million in transfer fees.
Well, that's the thing is that's where I think he's being realistic when he says we could be debt free in 5 years. Is we need to get the club to the point where wages are one thing. Wages happen at every football club, but not every football club has 90 million going out the door every summer. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you add that onto also the revenue that the new stadium can bring in and stuff like that, is why can't we be debt free in 5 to 6 years?
Because the Glazers have crippled you and sawn off your legs.
Not even that. I'll come back to the Glazers in a minute. You can't say you're going to be debt free for a stadium that's going to take 5 years to build, cost £1 billion, and rely on government funding to get the infrastructure around it for it to be able to be built. So that is 5 years it'll take to build that from start. So don't count that yet, because it could take 2 years for any funding to be.
There's a lot of lobbying to be done between here and breaking ground.
I think the lobbying's been done though. That's how I've read it.
Generally is, but it's going to take 2 years for the government to sign off on funding because governments run on glacial pace. Like even with the best will in the world, Keir Starmer doesn't have the time nor the cash.
Even if he is a football fan, he's not a United one.
No. But also like what you're saying, like not every club has a 90 mil transfer spend before you ever spend. Well, how is that? Like Radcliffe saying it's not going to affect your spending. How
How
can
could
it
it
not
not?
affect
Yeah.
your spending when you're trying to turn a profit in 5 years' time, but you're going to have, let's say, 90 mil this summer coming. Let's say 50 the one after. Let's say
Plus
40 the
plus
one
the
after.
Because
30
the thing
plus
is,
the 35 a year in interest.
the way I've read into it is he's discovered a lot of levies that are taking money away from the club. He's already said we have the second highest revenue in world football. I believe I read somewhere that Madrid's were somewhere in 700 million. Is like I don't think United are that far off. I believe it's like between 600 and 650.
It's you,
It,
Madrid, and City, isn't it? That's the top three.
um,
Or would it be Bayern?
us, Madrid, Barca, City, Bayern. I think that's how
Okay.
I got. Um, I think City are only at like 300 million revenue a year, so like we're still a fair
Oh,
whack
he's
ahead of
way
them.
way ahead of them. Yeah.
But like that's what I mean. It's like the cash flow coming in isn't the issue. It's just finding how to take the levies off it, if that makes sense, in terms of freeing up space and you know actually being able to use our revenue for good.
But why do you take Radcliffe at face value on them bits, but then not on others? Because these are the parts that are going to affect the shareholder price when when he's saying now, oh, in 5 years' time it's going to be debt free and all that. That's like buy up stock now because it's going to be more valuable in a couple of years' time. So when we are in the bottom half of the table for the second or third year in a row, don't worry, the good times are coming and your stock price will only go up.
Because I don't think he like Ratcliffe doesn't have a reason to really care about the stock price currently. Like he's not looking to
He
sell.
he does when it affects the value of the club.
Well, can
Yeah,
we
but
also say, boys, as if like on the point of stock price and shares, when have you ever seen a minority owner have to be the front like that? I know it's a unique situation in
he's
the
choosing
operational
to.
control that he has, but like this should be the Glazers taking those belters.
Well, we know it won't be the Glazers. No, he's choosing to do that, and whatever his reasons are for that is one or another.
I actually
Um,
applaud him for it because at least somebody's putting a face to it.
but in terms of when he says that we're going to be debt free in 5 years, is you got to take that at face value. Like he's a businessman, you know what I mean? In terms of whether he can deliver that or does deliver that is a different thing. But like if he says that he's identified a way to get to that, why can't I take that at face value?
Oh, because I'm a Sunderland fan. I've had owners promise that we're going to be debt free, that they were going to not take any money out of the club when they were using parachute payments to pay for it. All we got out of it was straddled with debt and changed a few pink seats back to red.
But
These guys, they are like, as we said about everything else about Radcliffe, ruthless businessmen, and when it comes down to the likes of a club like this, especially with the likes of government funding going to be involved in this regeneration, you have to be able to show strength and that the business is going in the right way, but also be able to play poor at the same time. It just works perfectly.
Look,
no, 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 wait, wait,
he
wait.
may be able to get you in a financial position like Spurs. Spurs are the best operated club in Europe by far, and they have a similar stadium cost that you guys will have at some point, and you may get there. But like 5 years, I think is overly ambitious to put it politely. I think you're
I
looking at a decade.
I don't think it's overly ambitious, but let me say this: is when Radcliffe's coming out and saying stuff in an interview, yeah, he's saying that. But like, let's be real, United is a publicly traded company. The government can go and see what's going in and out of that club, how much debt we have. Like, it's all there to see. So he's not hiding stuff. If that makes sense. What he's saying to the government's another thing. But I think in terms of like what the government can see, and like we're not lying to them, if that makes sense. But in terms of like the actual clearing of the debt is we can clear our debt in 2 years. It's just finding the way to free up our spending that we currently have.
Well, see,
At the
that's what I
detriment of the
mean.
club, though. You know,
That's
like
the big thing. Like if you look, if we're going to compare them with Spurs, who have now been called the one of the best run clubs in the world, by not just Mr. Glennon but others as well.
yeah, I'm
Um,
not the Financial Times
yeah.
over here.
Uh,
Yeah.
but like when you look at them, they're a team based in London. They're a team that chronically under invested and overperformed for the best part of a decade. Got into the Champions League and was also able to like resell assets for much more than they had overall spent. United is in the north. They have a crap stadium that they're trying to redevelop now. They've chronically overinvested and got so little back, and have also underperformed
And a
in
crap
the space
training
of a
centre.
decade. Oh well, the training center, that money is spent now. It's going to be fixed by the
Well,
summer, apparently. So
I
well, we
think
take
being
that.
up north's irrelevant though in terms of like when we get to new stadium is we are going to be the hotspot of the north
Land
where
prices, though, like Spurs alone, the value of the land where their old stadium sat would fund a massive portion of the money fronting for the new stadium.
You'd need less government help with a land value that you
Yeah,
have in
because
London.
like if like by taking out a loan against the land holding, that you can turn around and say, oh well, if this stadium, or if we can't pay for it, well then the land beneath it is already
Security,
massively,
yeah.
yeah.
yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, I think the big thing in terms of like where they're going though is, and I think you've mentioned previously, Connor, is like say in America for the Dallas Cowboys or whatever, they bring in a huge amount of money on match day.
Yeah,
That's
70 million a game.
70 million a game. I'm not saying United are going to go anywhere near 70 million a game, but when you look into the actual designs of this new stadium and the way they're going is they're really trying to turn it into, you have an 8 p.m. kickoff, you rock up at 1 p.m. and you can do what you want. You know what I mean?
See,
That's
this is the thing. Like, I think what Radcliffe is putting in place is going to pay off massively over 15 years. And by the time
What age is
Radcliffe is
he, can I ask?
72, 73?
Like, the man isn't... Like, he doesn't have 20 years to play the game here.
Well, by the time
I reckon
he's...
he does. He's
Well,
like
I'd say he'd be around, but by the time he's physically not as hands-on as he is now, he'll be seeing the payoffs of it. Whether he'll be at the club at that stage, because ultimately the Glazers will have to go at some point, maybe not completely, but in a majority sense. And as Radcliffe himself said, there's only one place that he can go and get that money, is that's Qatar. And
I did
maybe,
find it funny he pointed to that, because that was a big... I think that was a bit of dig at Sheikh Yassin.
or was that a kind of hint at, listen, in a couple of years' time, this is how we're going to be debt free, because I'm going to convince the Glazers to sell another massive portion of the club.
Yeah, that's
Which
a fair point.
I from an outsider looking in, Nate, and I don't know how you would think about it. If that's what it takes, that's what it takes, and if you're going to be the ultimate businessman, that's how you do it.
yeah. I saw that comment as a shot at Qatar rather than
I
a
do, yeah.
come here and let's team up type thing. I think he has a plan on how to clear the debt. Let's just see how it plays out. But yeah, I think if he's gone to the effort of, you know, like, but let's be real, yeah, is if he's going to this length of cutting costs back, and we all know that it's only the start of it and it's very surface level right now, is why would he go to that effort of ruffling all them feathers if it wasn't truly a plan? You know what I
Because
mean?
he's a sadist.
Well, as I said last week, that's exactly what asset strippers do.
Yeah, but come on,
Now,
he's
I
not
don't think he is that.
I don't
but
think he's
that's what they
malicious. I don't think he's... they're parallel in the way that they work. I don't think he's malicious in his intent. I do think he is trying to save the club, but I think the job is bigger than he anticipated and or can handle, and it's definitely more than a 5-year plan. If he can pull that off in 5 years, I will eat my words, bow down, fair play. But that case study would be studied in every university in the world in the finance department if he can pull this off in 5 years.
And we will be around in 5 years' time, Connor, to be able to pull you up on that. But one of the things that I said we would go back to is the Glazers. And Nate, I'm not sure about you, I found it hilarious the one time Neville got really het up about anything was on the Glazers. It's like, come on,
yeah,
beating the
like
dead horse.
yeah, like he listen. The way Neville feels about the guys is imagine it matches with 99.9% of every United fan, and I'd say the only other 0.1% is Radcliffe himself. Um,
I wish somebody would think about me as much as Neville obviously thinks about the Glazers, because they are never far from that man's
They're
brain.
rent free in his head for the last 15 years.
Well, they're rent free in every United fan's head. they're truly the devil to us. Like, I think the
Hey,
big thing is I was not doing real that.
Red Devils.
The big thing is what is Jim gonna say there other than you know play that line down the middle? Like they're his business partners, whether we like it or not. He's
And
not.
whether he likes it or not,
Yeah, he's not going to go out and slate them. He's not going to have a go at them. He's going to play a very even game. Do I think if you were having a pint with him and there's no cameras and he sort of trusted you, would he be speaking in such a good way? Probably not because he's had to clear up their mess. But yeah, you're only going to get one answer out of that question.
No, I was more just on Neville. Like that's kind of the bit that got me. It's like softy, softy, softy. Relatively hard questions here and there, but nothing that he can't handle. Then the one time he doesn't let it go is the Glazers.
there
It's
was
like,
a
come on, Neville. We've heard this time and time again.
I don't want to, like I said, I think Neville did better than I expected him to do, but I don't know about you guys. It had a bit of a bang of when Lance Armstrong had the interview with Oprah, and it was a bit like nicey nice, soft. Could have been a bit more pointed if and a bit more informative if they really prodded. But like I would like to see a round two of that.
I think it was pointed though. Like,
Ish. Like I think it was as pointed as he could be without Sky Sports getting scalded or any of those repercussions. Or also, let's face it, he wants to keep aligned to the club, so he can't push it too heavy either.
well, yeah, he was doing the intro for the stadium today, so
Yeah,
Well, yeah, 'cause he was on. Not only that, he was on the part of the paneling for the idea generation of it all. So like, he was always going to play it to suit himself. Like Neville is a businessman
I will say
before he's anything else.
based on that VO, David Attenborough's job is safe. Yeah.
So we've been kind of talking around the stadium, Nate. Can you kind of talk us through the look, the vibe, the idea of what they're trying to get across? Because obviously all these images are going around on social, and I think everybody's seeing different combinations of each of them. Where is the stadium going to be built exactly? What's the kind of general plan around that, and what's the kind of general plan of the stadium and this infrastructure that you spoke about, the arrive at one for a game at 8 or whatever?
Once you find €2 under every couch in the entirety of Manchester to fund the project. But anyway, continue.
oh, it's right next door, like literally right outside. Yeah, well, like the actual plan for the stadium is, I think they've looked at what Spurs have done and we've gone, let's make it like 5 times more interesting. It looks like it's going to be, a huge. I think there was a saying in it today. It was like the biggest covered area in the world or something. I believe that's what they said.
Huh?
Um, like that whole part of work that they're redoing. Um, like I think the plan for it is to have a fucking shopping center, cinema, restaurants, like everything in there that once you go for a match day is what's the need to nip over to the Trafford Centre or whatever when it's right there outside Old Trafford and they're taking a percentage of it, you know what I mean?
For context, I think the only, Killian, you summed it up pretty well in the fact it looks like a circus tent. I think the only other way you could possibly compare it is a Harry Potter tent. Visually, what do you think, Nate? Because it's raised eyebrows.
It looks like the Quidditch World Cup.
That is what I was going for. Yeah, that is what I was going for.
I think it looks all right.
Oh no, I think it
Really?
looks really good. I think it is a vibe. I don't think it's everybody's vibe, but I think aesthetically you can't kind of go, that's hideous.
Working class Manchester, that does not scream that, I don't know about you guys.
Gentrification. It's coming. Like,
Like, is that the vibe they're going for? I don't think so. Like, I think the thing is, it is in Manchester. Like, the weather's not always going to be lovely. I think having that aspect where it's still outside and covered, I think it's going to add that more. Even on miserable days, on match days, it's still going to be a hub and thriving, and people are going to be there. You know what I mean?
like I saw some of the generated imagery around it. It has this kind of what looks like a mesh cover over it, and it, as we say, circus tenty, Quidditch World Cup kind of vibes to it. But it has a museum. It's going to have shops. It even seems to have these kind of like semi outdoor areas that have like little pop up gig areas and stuff like, and then that is one of the other things that they are really going to push for now, isn't it? To have the kind of the more major gigging and outdoor events in the stadium, because obviously the other thing that I don't think we've kind of really touched on particularly that much is they're also raising the size of it to 100,000, which would make it the biggest stadium in the UK, I think.
Yeah, no, it will. It'll make it one of the biggest
In the
in
world.
the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Actually, quickly before while I think of it, what is the world's biggest stadium for
it's
football anyway?
There was one. There was a World Cup final one that had like 100,000 odd people. The Maracana.
No, so I believe that crowd was well over 150,000,
Yeah.
but not legally,
Okay.
as this was 1950.
Okay. Yeah.
But there is a built stadium that has a capacity of 150,000.
What?
Yeah. So like most people kind of think
Football
of
stadium? Like
football stadium. Most people think of the Azteca
Yeah.
in Mexico, which is I think 105 or in and around that. Maybe it's 110. Guess the continent.
Oh, it's gonna be Asia, isn't it?
Asia,
It's Asia.
It's gonna be Philippines, isn't it?
No,
Oh,
India.
even more rogue. Kind of the nuclear option.
no. North Korea.
Mayday Stadium in North Korea.
Have we any proof it exists, or is this like Kim Jong Un getting 18 hole-in-ones in a round?
No, it exists. You can see it on satellites, and I believe that there's actually military personnel buried underneath it for going against the dear leader.
This
but
is
the
all
Mayday
alleged, Kim
Stadium.
Jong Un. We do not want any smoke.
No,
Thank
no,
you.
no. His dad. It was Eel.
Kim Il Sung, we do not want any smoke. Don't haunt us. Thank you.
Yes, the Mayday Stadium is actually the biggest in the world. Until who knows that they might knock down New Camp again and try and rebuild that to be bigger.
What a
just to try
sight
and
that
pay
would
off
be,
the
though.
rent.
Like, I mean, I will say whether I like the design or not of New Trafford, it'll be some spectacle to see 100,000 people at a game in the Premier League, and if the final kind of outlay of this looks anything like that of the designs, it'll be incredible. And I think that is the key to your future in terms of sustainability financially. It's just how long it'll take to get there. I really don't know. Because look, it's the same with building a house. Add on 20% of the time and 40% of the cost. You know,
It's gonna be 5 years, lads. Believe.
if you like, I would be surprised if it takes 5 years to build. I'd be surprised if it breaks ground within the next two. I think 7 years, 7.5 years before you're playing games there.
It's going to take five. Like it's going to be all done in 5 years' time. The same way Sunderland was going down to League One for 1 year.
I think if they're announcing it like now, I like there has to be some green light somewhere. You know what I mean? Otherwise, they just wouldn't announce it.
Oh, no, I think there's green now.
DIT Grange Gorman got announced, I don't know, 20 years ago and opened about 2. You know,
National Children's Hospital, New Trafford of Dublin.
The thing is, the stadium isn't going to be done by the government. Like that's going to be private.
No,
So,
but
like-
it's all the bits around it that will
Around it,
allow
yeah.
it to be.
Well, I think
built.
we might see the stadium get done quicker if the government like puts pen to paper on the other stuff getting done. You know what I mean?
but
Like,
the only way the government are going to sign that quickly is if they see the economic benefit of it in the north. And obviously, it's pretty obvious that there is that. But I think, as Killian said, governments are not exactly the quickest moving operations, and this is not top of the list based off a Trump world. You know.
One of the other things, Nate, is like if you are building in, let's say if it's meant to be completed in 5 years, let's pretend that's
It will
going to
be.
happen in the real world. Where are you going to play? Are you going to be in the Etihad?
oh fucking heck. What MK Don Stadium or something like?
Head down to Bury. Yeah.
They don't use it, so it'll be there or something. I don't know. I
Like
don't
because it's
know,
going to be
yeah.
if they're going to be built beside each other, you could feasibly like get the new stadium, maybe not the kind of campus around it. You could potentially get the stadium built alongside of Old Trafford, and then be able to knock Old Trafford and then finish
Has
it.
that been done before though? Because there's been enough new stadiums built that that's never really
Did Spurs
happened.
not do it?
I don't remember.
I think they, because they were kind of basically beside each other, but kind of not. That like one of the corners of White Hart Lane was the only bit that was stopping it. So when they knocked it, they could finish off the rest of it.
Did they
So they
do
were
it with Wembley actually? When they did New
uh,
Wembley?
can't remember. That I was also a child when that happened, so some of us wouldn't have the same kind of memory as you, Connor.
Well, I'm so old. My memory should be going. Apparently,
To be honest, it'd be funny if we just done like a world tour and just went around loads of places and just outsold the actual clubs that exist in that area. I
Just
think it'd
you
be
could
quite
just go
funny.
to Wembley where all your fans are anyway. So,
You're funny.
or is this the most Jim Radcliffe bad bastard businessman with American owners? Do you get the first international Premier League games and bring the game
Premier
to
League
America?
wouldn't allow it from a player welfare point of view. I mean, it's definitely based off. Here's Glennon's weekly NFL shout out, but I think based on the internationalization of the NFL, look, it's coming. It absolutely is. But I not in that time frame. Well, definitely not in the apparent 5 years it'll take.
I just think we should go to every other Premier League stadium and outsell them. It'd be hilarious. Rocking up Southampton, having more fans than they had in their stadium. Like,
Well, you'll have the same number of local fans as you normally have in Manchester anyway.
we are massive.
Like, because genuinely though, like one of the things about it is like the City of Manchester Stadium is the real name of the Etihad or the Etihad, and it is owned by the council. So I know City have like this lease that gives them total control and total earnings from it, but if it's a regeneration project, there could be some leaning on done onto the
But
council to give you that space.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't think it'll happen because of security, and also I would imagine,
They're
you
not
know,
exactly Rangers and Celtic.
I
Like, come
know,
on.
I know, but like even from if you look at it at a smaller scale, if you're the main occupant of if you're the main occupant of a mall, a shopping mall, and you're a supermarket, you have first refusal on a competitor supermarket entering that facility. I'd imagine unless there was some serious financial benefits, as in City get half the gate for United games, or they get a quarter, the City Council gets a quarter, and United get half. That's the only way this works. But if United are trying to pay for a stadium, pay for all these upgrades, and counter all the taking away of elements from the club, they're not going to sign on for that.
So Man United are going to play in the Mayday Stadium in Pyongyang.
You heard it here first, yeah.
Gentlemen, we are flying through time here, so I'm going to actually look at some of the comments and questions that we've gotten in the last.
You better not call me a clown again. I'm not ready for it today.
No, there's no clown ones, but there's other ones that aren't as nice. So talking about things that would not fix Man United, including Muhammad Ali's leadership. Really simple. They are buying average or poor players, and manager is poor. 6 signing this season, all fit, plus Ahmad, Collier, Obi, yet worse than last season. Look totally demoralised. Enough said, Nate.
What?
Buying average or poor players, manager is poor. 6 signings this season, all fit. But is are worse than last year and is it completely demoralised?
Amarin's only signed one player.
That's the answer,
yeah. Connor, it's sad listening to 3 Irish people talking about a British team.
Look, okay, I see your point. What's that trend? We answer, but we don't take offense, or we hear, we don't
listen, but we don't judge.
Yeah, there's a bit of that. But look, yeah, I think the three of us are obviously proud Irishmen. We want the league to do well domestically. Should we be championing that more? Probably. But I think we all grew up in an era, some of us older than others, as pointed out, where English clubs were flying the flag of football talent, and I think there's a world in which both can coexist. But yeah, I do think we should shine a light a little bit more in the League of Ireland.
I'm glad that that commenter only ever listens to the Saw Doctors and will never listen to Americans or English musicians.
Yeah,
God.
the listener can keep crying. I'll support who I want to support. Thank you very much.
This team is built around Bruno, and yeah, 15th. Bruno was so overrated by Man United fans, Nate.
He hasn't watched the last couple of games, has he? Like I to be honest with you, I don't even know what to reply to that. Like you're clearly not a United fan. You're just trying to wind me up.
That's actually my burner account. I'm glad you saw my comment. Yeah,
Bruno's been the reason we're not getting relegated, and I'll say it again.
And the last comment goes to our man Camilo TB. Love the episode clowns. Kidding on the clown thing, of course. We have new rule changes coming down from FIFA. In honor of that, if you had to create a new rule on the field or off, what would it be and why?
Oh, that's one I feel like I knew of before we got it. I don't know.
I can get you started because
Go
it's one
for
I
it.
suggested in the very, very early days of Not a Pundit, which is no on-field ref.
Oh, don't do this again.
All multi-refed from a control box. But like we actually, when you look at it in the Sidemen charity game, the way Clattenburg kind of did it, where rather than having an actual VAR, he was doing it in front of everybody. It was like, pull it up on the screen there, I'll have a look and make a decision. I'd either like that, where whoever's on the field is making all the decisions but has the benefit of video, or give it to a complete and utter, like a movie director, like a Eurovision, where you have 100 cameras and different angles. Give it to one director up in a box who can see every angle. That'd be my rule change. One or the other, and I'd be happy.
I don't know. One for me now. I probably need to think about this more before I say it, but here we are. Kind of pulling from rugby and the way they've changed the card systems and, upweighting a yellow to a red and a 10 minutes to a 20 minutes. I do think there could be, if a player gets sent off, you're a man down for 20 minutes, but you can replace that man with a different player. The player that got sent off still gets the ban, whatever it is, 2-3 games. But I think to keep the competitiveness in games, as opposed to if you're a lower half team against Man City, you go man down for a stupid challenge. You'll lose someone for 20 minutes, but then you'll have someone back in the pitch and you still have a chance of scraping a point.
That's not bad.
Yeah, I'm kind of down with that.
I'm very surprised. I thought I was pouring pouring gasoline on a fire there.
No, see, I do like when teams go down to 10 men, but also I can understand from a commercialization point of view why it'd be better. And plus, nobody likes when their team is down to 10 men.
Well,
So,
also, you are punished for, like, if it happens, 20 minutes to go, you don't have a player for the rest of the game. Like,
Plus, they go all defensive as well.
do you, because you're saying to potentially be able to sub them, like, do you only have like one red card?
Yeah. Like, it's not infinite. Like, yeah, you'd have one kind of trump card, if you want to call it that, of your red card player. And
Okay,
actually,
and
one thing I think to make it so that it's not calculated depending on the game, you have to nominate that player pre-kickoff.
Oh. Nate, any new rule ideas?
Oof.
Maybe some
I've got something a bit
profit
mad.
and sustainability ones.
We like, but don't bring up that dreaded
I
word.
will go there.
We like mad. What you got?
Okay, so I've got one idea, but two ways of implementing it. I think.
Go.
It's to get back to the old way of football. So
I like it already.
People are allowed to punch each
either
other. I like it.
you can only have the ball on the ground for a certain period of time in terms of, it encourages more getting up the pitch, or, well, actually, there's a couple of ways of implementing it. You can only keep the ball in your half for a certain period of time.
That I can go with.
That's easier to do.
Yeah.
That you could actually
Or
logistically make
you
that
can
work.
only have a certain amount of passes in your
I
half
don't. No, I don't
before
think you
getting
could.
up
I
to
don't
two.
think you could police that, and
That,
also
that's about volleyball.
that also
Well,
takes.
just have a VAR for
But it
actually get
also
them
takes
working.
away the celebratory way when you start passing it around 53 times in your own half. No, I do like the idea of you can only keep it in your half for so long. I look, I there's a certain friend of mine, also called Connor, who will kill me for saying this, but I do not want to return to the big jack football of just lob it long. But no, I think there's definitely something in the other one that we could look into. I tell you, Camille has always the best questions.
Absolutely class. But there is one other rule change I will suggest, and I just think I just love the idea of this. And I know it's been mooted around before, which is when it goes to penalties, your manager needs to take one of the first five.
Oh, stop! Like, I mean, come on, it's not Soccer AM, boys, please.
I want to see Roy Hodgson take a penalty.
Yeah, but that'd be unfair if it's like fucking Zidane versus Hudson. Like, you know what
Well,
I mean?
it would give another element to whoever you're hiring.
Oh, Jesus, boys! I mean, come
Plus,
on
it
now.
would bring ageism into the sport. Like,
Could you imagine the panic on a team that has a 70-year-old manager as they're in the extra time they're going shit.
Can you
He's gonna have to take
actually,
one.
I'm down for this. Amarin will be class at it.
Can you imagine Big Sam steps up and does a Terry and just falls on his arse? Like, I mean, come on, boys.
Haven't seen that man celebrating in a Sunderland shirt and trying to show off his red interior of his suit. He can move when he wants to.
Those hips don't lie.
And on that bombshell, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure as always. We'll chat to you again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Messi. Messi.